I used to believe that you didn't really have control over what happened. That's not true at all. I think you have control over almost anything that you're willing to put the work into. And again, focus on the solution. You cannot be everything in your business. You have to let go of things. If it can't grow without you, you're just going to stay stuck. People don't want to buy a job. So if you put in a system, you almost can't really mess it up. Look at your resources and what do you have. If people did that more, you would just be shocked at the opportunities. I have yet to find someone that could not charge a lot higher fees for their services, and they can't see the value because they're too close to it. It's like, you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. Look at existing clients and see where they might have gaps. So it doesn't always have to be going out and getting new clients, because we're always out there looking for new business. Sometimes the business is sitting right in front of you.
So let's dive in. Could you tell us, like going back to the beginning, what prompted you to leave corporate life and start your own venture with only $15 in your pocket and a whole bunch of grit in your heart?
Oh, well, as we were just discussing in sort of the green room, I left California, which was when I left my corporate career, and I wanted to move back to the Midwest and be a mom. I had two little ones and wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but the math did not work with my husband's paycheck, and we were really struggling financially. So I started looking for a way to make money. It kind of started as, okay, I'm going to make a little bit of extra money for my family, but it turned into a global business that I did for many years and employed other people and was running. And this was way before the internet. So this was like 35 years ago. And since then, I built five other businesses and sold them, and then the two that I'm in. So that was the start, though.
And how do you build a global business before Google, essentially? Like these days, it's taken for granted that you're connected to everyone, but could you walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I had a craft doll business. The crafts were exploding across the country at that time, and I did all of my own designs. They were all unique and signed and numbered, and I created a whole line of dolls. And I advertised in international magazines, very expensive advertising in international magazines. And then I was in stores all across the country. So internationally, it was from print advertising. That's what took me all over the world. I remember the first time I got an order from Iceland. I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. So
No pun intended.
no fun.
Yes.
Yes, very good. I didn't even catch that. I love it.
So you said, Anne, that you built and sold five businesses and you're in two now. What is your secret to building businesses into engines that thrive? They're not just surviving, but they're doing really well.
Yeah, I think I learned a long time ago that you cannot be everything in your business. You have to let go of things. You have to build somewhat turnkey systems, or you have to build businesses that where you can grow them and can scale them. And I was able to do that in my first business by hiring a lot of other people to do a lot of the work. And then there were some things I still wanted to do in the business, but then I was the driver of the business, and I did the design, and I did the parts that really I couldn't have outsourced, or wouldn't have outsourced. And so you have to learn to do that when you're building businesses. And then when I was building my two health clubs and my two weight loss centers, I had lots of employees and teams that helped run those businesses. And I just learned you have to build something that if it can't grow without you, you're just going to stay stuck. And you can't sell those either. People don't want to buy a job. So if you're ever thinking with a bigger vision, what it would look like to sell something, no one wants to buy something that's going to be a job. They can start that on their own. They don't need to pay money for that. So you have to think like that if you are looking to do bigger things.
So it's interesting. It's kind of the outsourcing and the finding of the right people and kind of the people side of business, which I think sounds straightforward, but probably in reality is not so much, right? People are the best part of business, but also probably some of the hardest parts of business. How do you manage when you build something yourself, the side of it's my baby, I want control over it, and I need to trust other people to do these things right? How do you balance that as you hire and as you grow teams?
Yeah, it's really important to put in the systems. this is going to sound really bad, but I always say don't leave anything to chance. So if you put in a system that is very, you can easily train someone on it, and everybody does basically the same thing, you almost can't really mess it up. It's like McDonald's, right? As long as you train the people, you have the system. Uh, that's really how you do it. And I always say the best business is one where you get to do the things that you really love and the things that you're really good at, and you get to outsource all of the other stuff. So there are certain things I'm not good at in business. I don't enjoy it at all, and those are the things that I let go of. And then there are other things that I absolutely love to do, and I want to keep doing those. But know what that vision is for your business, because that will drive your decisions, and that's a really important piece. So when people are starting, they don't often do that, and that's where they often get stuck, or in fulfillment, or they get stuck in their business, or they have to completely reroute their business because now they've built it the wrong way. So having that vision and that game plan from the very beginning is a really powerful strategy when you get started.
Another challenge is charging what you're worth. Could you talk to us about how you implement it or how you kind of address that strategically and mentally?
Yeah. Well, I don't really like to say, I don't like to use the terminology charging what you're worth, because I always feel like we're worth way more than anybody would ever pay us. But charging what your services are worth is really the language I love to use, because what I find is most people are not, especially if they've been in business for a long time or they really are excellent at what they do. I have yet to find someone that could not charge a lot higher fees for their services, and they just don't see it. They don't, number one, they're either not exposed to the fact that they can. They don't know how they would put that together, or what would make this so much more valuable. How do I, package, price, and market this? And they can't see the value because they're too close to it. It's like, you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle, right? You're too close to it. You don't look at yourself the same way other people look at you. A good example, I don't build websites. I look at a website designer and go, wow, but to a website designer, it's like nothing to be able to do that. And that's what I'm talking about. So they don't really value what they're doing because it's so normal to them and so second nature to them. But to other people that need a website and that want a website that's going to do something in particular for them, that's worth money to their business. That's an investment to them. So you have to really understand that.
With entrepreneurship, one of the kind of hallmark features is resilience and being able to recalibrate in tough times. Could you maybe highlight a moment where things nearly broke and how did you recalibrate and bounce back?
This is a good one. Good question, actually. I did this. So I'm going to go back to when I had one of my health clubs and one of my weight loss centers, and we hit the 2008 recession. And right before that recession hit, I had my husband and I put everything on the line to expand that business and go into a 16,000 square foot facility that we signed a 7-year lease on, and invested in a lot of equipment and things for that club, and just really I knew that was the thing we were supposed to do to grow that business. But right after that, the recession hit, and on top of that, we had I was a higher end club. I was really the highest end club in our community, and we had a very low price competitor come in that was literally like 75% less of my prices. And all of a sudden, the economy takes a nosedive. Well, anyone that didn't value a high level or a high value gym membership or health club membership, and maybe money was strapped for them, all of a sudden, they were jumping ship to the low value club. And so we took a big hit. Actually, I take it back. That's when my weight loss center got put in. So what I did was actually expanded. I opened the weight loss center because that could set us completely apart. I was already doing weight loss with people, but I didn't have an actual business around it. It was part of the business. So I invested in a licensing program, which was like a franchise. And I added that to my club as a separate business in a separate entity of my club. And they started feeding each other. And so that set us completely apart. It brought in new people that wouldn't have wanted a health club membership or a gym membership. So that was the first move I made. And then we decided to go ahead and expand and open two more in a completely different location. So I opened a high end women's center because I already knew that playing in a premium market, they were not affected the same way in a slowed economy. So I opened a really high end women's training center, and then I added a weight loss center, another licensing program to that. And so really, I expanded and opened three more businesses, which people thought was just crazy because people were shutting down all around. But I was able to get really great help because they were desperate for jobs. I was able to get really great leasing on the building because they were desperate. People were shutting down, so they were desperate to get people into their buildings. I got advertising at savings and discounts. So it turned out to be a really great thing. And I knew what my idea was. Well, if I can't make the same money I was with this one business, I'll expand and I will be able to keep my revenue up. And so that was sort of my idea. But I knew if I could keep my head above water and get through the recession, because I had been through ups and downs already, I knew that I would have now four businesses instead of one. And that was a great move. It was scary as heck, but it was a great move. And I think that got me over a lot of fear to make big moves and big leaps in my business. And so there have been a lot of others I've made, but that one really stands out to me because that was one of the biggest. We risk everything. We could have lost everything we owned. So that was a big one.
Well, I guess it's that thing of if you do what everybody else does, you get what everybody else gets. And if in 2008, and I'm sure in 2000 as well, and maybe during COVID, lots of businesses have been hit in different ways. Others saw the opportunity that was presented to them at the time and went with that and saw very different results.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
what would you say, taking into account those huge things off the top of our heads that we can think of that probably did affect businesses? What's the theme there of pushing through those hard times? Is it diversifying into different things? Is it expanding on what works? What would you say is the theme?
Yeah, I think it could be both. I think if you've got something working, how can you expand on that? Don't give it up. Or how can you pivot that a bit to continue to make it work? I'm also a big believer, and I've just seen this from being in business 35 years. And even when I was in retail, I was in retail management. So I was still in the business side and the marketing side. I saw ups and downs in the retail space too. And one thing that I learned is, first of all, there's always going to be these cycles, right? There are always going to be things that happen. But the one thing that I learned is that the more resilient you can be, the more innovative you can be. Innovation is key. And I think for a lot of people, they don't really think like this. You have to get very creative. It's just like when I started that first business, I was trying to find a way to make money. We had no opportunity around us, and I had a box of stuff in my basement. And I thought, I can make some stuff with this and take it to a little store. So it's like, look at your resources and what do you have? And if people did that more, if they got more innovative and creative, you would just be shocked at the opportunities that people have that they just aren't taking advantage of or just not even seeing. Um, a good example of this too is everyone's freaking out about AI, right? AI is going to take our jobs. But with AI, just like if you look at the industrial revolution, it's always opened new opportunities. Yes, things have changed, they change, but there are new opportunities that open up as a result of that. So if you think like that and you realize that, you're always looking for the solution and you're not focused on the problem. And that is probably the best advice I could ever give anyone.
You have some really impressive client results, Anne. I'd love to just highlight a couple and see if you could share maybe a little bit of the context or story behind it. So you have a consultant you helped go from zero to almost seven figures in 1 year. Another client who added consulting to her social media services and closed $400,000 plus dollar deal. Someone else added 1.8 million in a year, and it goes on and on. I mean, I'm not going to read every single one. They're all
Are you
equally,
looking
if
at
not,
LinkedIn?
yeah, equally or if not more impressive.
Mhm.
So, which of these stands out to you? If you were to highlight just one of them, could you tell us a little bit about what's the magic that you were able to kind of elicit or bring about?
Yeah, it really is about helping people play at that more premium level. And I've done this in every business. I learned how to do this in my health club when I first started. Well, it wasn't even a health club at that time. I was teaching classes out of a community hall. And I thought, I'm not going to make enough money doing this. I need to figure out something else. So I came up with a premium offer. And I learned that premium system all those years ago. And I've used it in every business I've ever coached and also had for myself. And so I knew when I work with these clients, that's the first thing I look at is okay, how can we create something premium for you, something that can get you paid a lot more money and really go all in on that. And that's what I really, or how can we set you apart from everyone else so that you become a premium provider? So I've done this in plumbing companies with auto repair shops. And so when I use that as my model, I help people really develop that premium offer. Is it something that you could sell over and over again? And then putting the marketing and the sales systems to be able to do that and be able to scale it. So the client that went from zero to almost a million, he was a referral from a past client. He came to me and he said, and I have 90 days to get this going because I've been trying for 6 months and I'm not even getting appointments. And he was trying to sell a machine, and it was a great machine. It was actually coming from Europe, and it was a really great machine, but he was trying to sell the machine. And so I looked at it and I thought, you really have something here, but who you're trying to sell it to and the way you're trying to sell it is not going to work. So we repackaged and restructured his entire system. It included the machine, but we added in some consulting services along with that. So we took that offer from a $4,000 machine to a $25,000 offer that included the machine. And we added in some marketing, we added in some training of the staff of the people that would buy the machine. So we just restructured everything. And he went to, at that time, he went to some trade shows, which was right in front of his ideal client. We made sure the message was right. We made sure everything that he had set up was exactly what those people would want. We put in the financing system, and it was actually, once we did it, it was pretty easy for him. He just hired some salespeople in other states and they went out and did the same thing. It was rinse and repeat.
That's amazing. And that seems to be somewhat common, or at least not uncommon. You mentioned earlier how you can't read the label from inside the bottle. And many of these experts spend so much time creating something of value that they can't really see it from outside of that perspective. They take it for granted that you know what it can and will do for you. So they're describing about like what they see in it. So like, you know, it can do this, or this is what I've done. And I think a lot of people are drawn to an experience or a destination. And so the storytelling of that is really important and helping them like, this is where you'll be, this is what you'll do. And then afterward say like, and this is how.
Yeah, and one of the things in his situation, his message didn't really match the market. So the machine was to help, it was for chiropractic, like he was targeting chiropractors. It was to help with healing and inflammation and things like that, which is great, right? But the problem with that is they just looked at it as another expense. He wasn't targeting them in a way that they would be like, "Oh, yes, I want to have that in my practice." So we had to change the messaging because he was talking about all the things the machine would do for their patients. Not that they don't care about their patients, not that they don't want to help their patients, but what's in it for the chiropractor who's footing the bill for all this, right? So we changed all that messaging so that he showed the impact it would have on the chiropractor's business. And then we also knew that they also run, what are the problems and what are the objections we would have to overcome. And one of those is that they have to put their hands on everyone. So we knew that they would just look at it as, I don't have time, I we can't do this. So we made it really easy. Like he'll train the staff and it's hands off for the chiropractor. All they have to do is basically sell the to the patient the offer, and then his staff can run it. And this is how much revenue it can produce for them in a year if they follow the program. So that made it really almost a no-brainer for those chiropractors to want to buy it because they saw the ROI, they saw the return on the investment. So that's a good example. That was how we did that, but that was a good example of where people kind of go wrong when they're trying to sell things. They're not really showing people the ROI, or they're not creating that value so the person will say, "Oh my gosh, this is a no-brainer."
Hmm. It's really fascinating. So my background, Anne, is in sales training, and I cannot tell you the hundreds of salespeople that I've asked the question, "Why would somebody buy what you're selling?" And they can't really answer the question. They repeat the features or the benefits, but they don't really talk about what that person is needs to be going through, or that business needs to be going through, what they care about, what's important to them. They can't do it. And so I think it's such a key part of selling anything is thinking, what's in it for them? What does that look like for them? What are the problems that they're going to have with it? How's it going to fit in with their business? And then craft your messaging around that, which doesn't just help you sell it for $4,000, but in this case, actually put a package together to sell it for multiple times what he was struggling to sell it at before.
Yeah, and the other thing we did, and I help my clients do this too, is we put in a finance system so that he got paid in full. So when they invested, they went through a third party funding company and they made payments to the funding company and he was paid in full. And that allowed him, that's why he was able to really grow it so much faster because he had a lot of money in the bank from the sales. In fact, I think the first weekend he went out to his very first paid trade show with the new assets and everything we had created. He had almost $100,000 trade show. And so that he knew then that he had something that was really rinse and repeat but the thing is, he could have done that online too. It's just, that was the way he chose to get in front of the chiropractors, but the same thing could have been done online. But he knew once he sold something, had that $100,000 weekend, he knew that he would be able to rinse and repeat that. And so, but it gave him the cash flow, and that was a big difference. And that is something too that I help my clients with. If they don't have the cash flow because of the way they're taking their payments, that's a big factor in how fast they can grow. So we fix all that for them.
I'd like to ask you a bit about your podcast, Anne. Could you tell us how you started it and what it's done for you, the learning, the networking, or anything that you'd like to highlight about it?
Oh my gosh, I love my podcast. It's one of my favorite things to do, but I love guesting as much as I love hosting my show. But it is one of the primary revenue drivers in my business. And I teach the same strategies to my clients. So many people put out a podcast with the intention of putting out great content. That's noble. That's noble, but you can use it for so much more than that. And it can be a real growth driver in your business. And I think enough people don't think about their podcast or their show like that, or they don't strategize it in the right way. They don't have a great strategy behind it. And so it never really turns into anything for them. And then they get tired and they burn out, or it just becomes an expense. But podcasting is a great, not only a visibility driver in your business and levels up your influence and your credibility and your visibility, but it also can drive revenue when you set it up in the right way. And guesting can as well.
Well, I have a couple of fun, like lightning round questions for you. So, what is a book or podcast that you recommend often?
Mm. A book that I love is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It's an older book. It's been around for a long time, but it's still one of my favorites. It was, and I love Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was probably one of my first like real entrepreneur books by Robert Kiyosaki. So I love those two. Um, yeah, as far as podcasts, this is going to sound really bad, but I don't listen to very many of them. I do. I'm more of a YouTube. I'm more of a video kind of person. So there are some people I follow, and I love to hear their content, but I just don't have the time, to be honest. That
Well,
sounds
you're
awful,
living
doesn't it?
it. You're both
I'm
hosting
living
and
it. That's
guesting,
right.
so
Yeah,
no problem. Coffee or green smoothie?
definitely coffee. I'm a coffeeholic, big time.
One thing people misunderstand about you.
That I sometimes I think, I've been told sometimes that I'm a little bit intimidating when, like, newer entrepreneurs come across me, if like, in a personal setting or, like, in a meeting or, because I know that I do kind of carry myself with confidence, and I never thought that about myself. I think I'm, like, the most down to earth, friendly person, but they said, "You just intimidated the heck out of me," until they got to know me, of course, but yeah, so I would say that maybe.
A belief you once held about business that you've since flipped.
I used to believe that you didn't really have control over what happened. That's not true at all. Yeah, like the economy affects your business and you don't really have control over it. And that was a game changer when I learned I did.
I want to double click on that one, if that's okay, and to expand a little bit on what was the moment or maybe series of things that happened that made you realize that it was the opposite. And can you expand a little bit on, as a business owner, what you do have control over?
Yeah, I think you have control over almost anything that you're willing to put the work into. And again, focus on the solution or focus on a different solution. But I used to, I even talk about this in my first book that I wrote like 15 years ago. When I was in my health club, I realized I used to think the economy or the market, okay, I was in a smaller community and I would think, okay, I was told that 10% of people in a community will get a health club membership. So I would do the math in my head, right? Okay, 10%. Here's how many people are in our town, and that means this many people, and there are three health clubs here or four health clubs, and I would break it up, right? And so that was a scarcity mindset, and I realized that had nothing to do with the kind of business I ran, the people that came through my doors, and and also the economy shift. When I made that big shift and expanded, that was a real uh, that was a real defining moment for me for a lot of reasons, because now I realize, you know what, you have a lot more control than you believe that you do. So, yeah. Does it help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that, if I've understood correctly, it's that yes, the economy can throw things at us that we can't control, but we can control what we do about it, and we can control the choices that we make and the pivots that we make in the face of whatever happens.
Absolutely, 100%.
And pretty apt times to keep that in mind. We're heading into a whole lot of uncertainty for a variety of reasons. I'm curious, you've been through a lot in your life, a lot of transitions. What do you make of the times that we're in now? Is this like par for the course, or do you feel that there's some unique kind of, is this a unique time that we're living through?
I think it's just another it's just another dip or another change. And again, you know, people always rise to the top no matter what the economy, no matter what's going on. And even now I'm making some different shifts in my business because I'm seeing gaps, like I'm identifying gaps in the market. And that's really what you have to do. You have to identify, okay, what are the things people are struggling with right now, and what do you have that can get them through that, and is the solution for that. And so if you shift, it's nothing different that I'm doing. It's just what I'm promoting is now different. It's the same thing I've been doing. So learning how to kind of make those shifts in how you're selling your services and what you're promoting so that it is relevant. I think that's a really important key. How is it relevant to the market today? But a lot of people don't learn how to do that. So
That's that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say that's really wise, but I don't know if it's really my place to tell you that your words are wise. But I think
sure, that sounds good. You can tell me
there's
that.
this lady that we spoke with recently. I think it was only a week or two ago, Becky. And she has this house on fire kind of analogy where she's like, if you try to sell someone something that they don't need, like you're going to have all sorts of, it's an uphill battle. But if you try to sell like a fire extinguisher or like a fire hose to someone whose house is on fire, like, they're trying to buy from you. Like it's not really, it's
Hmm.
like rolling a ball downhill. So look for kind of the pain points that align. And maybe to your point, Anne, just noticing like with the shifts
Hmm.
that you see in your environment, where are the opportunities, what problems are you trying to solve? I myself am guilty of this, where I'll try to make something that I think like looks good or is a good thing, just like in a vacuum, and I'm missing like a little bit of the connection. And then it's like I have these aha moments, like, oh,
Mhm.
like we know it kind of cognitively, like entrepreneurship is about solving problems, or business maybe for that matter, but
Mhm.
we kind of forget that when we're like we got our hands in the mud, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really connect to like who are you helping, why, like what are the pain points, and how is your service or product going to address that?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, because I help people get more premium clients, a lot of times when people are going after more premium clients, they're not struggling with the same things. They still have desires. So sometimes you're selling more to the desire, how you can help them get their big desire, to hit their big goal or get to their big vision. So it's not always about problems. And I think that is a mistake people make in the market. If someone, it is a problem for them, but it's not a problem in the same sense. So let me give you an example of this. Let's just say I'm $1 million company, and maybe I've been just trying for a while. Like it's just a big goal of mine to hit $2 million. Okay. This is an example. And I just can't quite seem to get that going, or I'm stuck. I'm stagnant in my business. And then someone like Ann comes along and says, hey, I can help you make $1 million leap in 12 months. That's not really a problem that I'm solving. It's playing to what their desire is. So now it would interest them. Hey, I would love to talk to you about that, or I would love to hear more about that. So it depends on what you are selling, but it doesn't always have to be fixing a problem. It is still a problem for them. But does that make sense?
Yeah, the language is a little loaded, I think, when you use the word problem. So I think there's
Hmm.
like a desire and problem Venn diagram like overlap,
Yes.
and maybe your
Hmm.
language would.
Yeah,
What
like
would
a
you say,
It's
Becky?
package.
still it's a problem, but it's more of a desire than it is a problem. Like they don't
Like
need
I
to get to
desire
two
to have
million,
my
right?
house not be on fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Well, I guess it's really the lack of fulfilling a desire becomes a problem, right? So I want this thing
Exactly,
and not
yeah.
having it as a problem.
Yes, so they have a big goal. It's just been something that's just they've, really wanted to do it and wanted to do it, but it just hasn't happened. And they haven't really they always have been keeping their eyes open for what could maybe help them do it. And maybe they've even invested in things to try to do it, but it hasn't happened. And so all of a sudden you come along and you've got the right message for them and they're like, "Yeah, I've been trying to do it and I've wanted to do this for so long. It's just been a personal goal." And this is just an example, but it's just been a personal goal, but I just haven't found the right thing or the right person that could help me. So you are solving a problem, but it's not a fire problem,
Mhm.
but it's a desire problem. Ooh, that kind of almost rhymes there.
Almost.
The flames of passion.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think it is important too. That's why I love in a premium market, they're not struggling with the same things. They are looking for different things, and they're not. It's not dire straits if they don't make
Hmm.
something happen. It doesn't mean they're not hungry for it. So it's important
Yeah,
to
the know
to
your
Mm.
segment,
distinguish that.
know like the language, and the messaging. Very, very important to keep in mind. You covered a lot of really interesting, powerful stories. Is there anything that we didn't touch on as far as business development or what you do that you feel we should highlight?
The only thing I would say is, I do have a bit of a different process than a lot of people. So a lot of people are about funnels, and so everything's a funnel, right? Everything you're doing is a funnel, but not in the sense of like a funnel, like a click funnels. So when I help people put in really high impact marketing systems, it includes building their influence and their expert platform, to build up that brand, and then putting in the systems to really attract those high end clients. And that's really important because the marketing systems that you use when you're going after really premium clients is going to be different than what you use when you're going after lower value clients. And I say lower value strictly like the money. I'm not talking about the people, but there's going to be a difference. And so we didn't really hit on that, but that is a piece of it's not just raise your prices. It's not just have a bigger offer or go after better clients. There's a process to that. it includes a lot of different pieces. It's and even being able to close the sales, as Becky said, you have to be able to articulate that sale and that value if you're going to close those big deals. But I also want to hit on one thing, David, when we were talking about the economy and shifts. One thing that people could do right now, and actually this was the $400,000 client. It was an existing client she was working with, that she was able to identify some gaps that they had in their business. And she went back. She said, I want to go in. I know I'm giving away a lot of my expertise and I'm helping them, but I'm not getting paid for it. Like I'm getting paid to do their social media. So this is why she hired me. I was actually a guest on her podcast, FYI. And so we put together that consulting offer, and I showed her how to go back and really pitch that offer to the client, and it turned into a $400,000 client. So, but it was an existing client. So one thing that people could do when they're looking at what's going on in the market is look at existing clients and see where they might have gaps, or identify some things that you could help with, and then you can upsell them and you can move into maybe a higher level offer and make money. So it doesn't always have to be going out and getting new clients. And I think that's a really important thing for people to remember, because we're always out there looking for new business. Sometimes the business is sitting right in front of you.
Absolutely. And it's definitely cheaper to expand existing accounts than it is to get new ones, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Where can people follow what you're doing or get in touch with you, Anne? Where would you like to point them?
Yes, you can follow me on social. I'm big on LinkedIn. You can follow me there. I have a YouTube channel. You can Google me and find whatever you want, or, but you can go to my website at annlcarden.com and get some free resources there. If you want to book a call, you can do that there. And you can get my podcast and everything there too. So that's my expert platform. It is a website, but you can get all of my stuff there too.
Excellent. We'll put those in the show notes. Thank you for talking to us today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. This was fun.